Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. This is my second video in growing cucumbers, squash, zucchini, determinate tomatoes in containers. Now you can do this at the beginning of the season, but we're into the second week of August now, and this is really a second wave, third wave of cucumber, zucchini, squash, which I encourage people to do. In the first video, which I'll link in the description into this video, was really setting up the container mix, how to do it the right way so that your plants thrive. The whole key to container gardens is making sure your soil holds moisture and you keep them fed. And this is only 4 weeks, 28 days after these all went in as transplants, and they're doing really, really well. So today I want to talk about fertilizing after a good 4 weeks of growth, after 5, 6 weeks. Water-soluble organic, and because we're putting these in later in the season, and you still have time if your frost comes in October, you can get in new waves of these plants. So this is what we'll have at the end of the video. I'm going to show you how to grow tomatoes, cucumbers, squash, zucchini, your large plants in containers. If you follow these principles, you can have a successful container garden. So let's take a look at these. I want to show you the production, and then we'll talk about fertilizing, and we'll also cover some quick spraying too to keep these healthy and producing. So these plants are 28 days from transplant, and the zucchini and squash have different issues. Those are just beetles. We'll put some dust on the outer part. I've been away for actually 7 days, but these did really well. We'll prune out some of the bigger leaves, but there are plenty of flowers in there, and I don't see any female zucchini yet, but that's okay. Sometimes they come later. There were 2 plants in here when we originally planted them, and I told you I would thin one out. I did, and you can see how big one plant gets. Where I have the leaves blending into the tomatoes, I'll remove some of those leaves, and these are a determinate type tomato, and you can see the tomatoes are already forming. In here I have 2 or 3 cucumbers, and they're producing. These are bush types, and I'm just going to let them trellis out. Although, even when they say bush type, sometimes they kind of take over, but I have the space here. The other determinate type tomato, couple issues on the leaves, but nothing that I'm too worried about. There were 3 cucumber plants in here, like I said, and the vines yellowed and softened, and I could have mounded up the dirt, which when I saw the problem here, that's what I did in here. I just mounded dirt around. I don't know if you can see it, it kind of settled. But I mounded the dirt around the stem just in case they had the same issue, and these plants did well. So if your vines look like they have damage somewhere in the vine from a vine borer or some other issue, mound soil over it and they will root out. Another determinant, and I think these are heat masters, doing really, really well. Now, 28 days later, look at all the squash in there. I don't see many issues, if any, on this plant. It's already producing, and this is just one plant. So if you have a small garden, or there's just a couple people in your family, you don't need, look at the pollinator, you don't need 3, 4, 5 zucchini and squash plant. Actually 2 will probably work for you. And after the first 2 are producing, go ahead maybe 6 weeks later, put in some seeds for the other plants. So these will get beat up if it was a first wave. Your second wave is coming. As this one dies out, the second wave is producing. It doesn't take long. And this is actually, and this is stevia. It's great for containers. Just put it in a place where it pops out and it gets the sun. It's great for teas, a great sweetener. There must be 8 squash in there forming, and none of them have browning on the end. That comes when they don't fully pollinate. So this is a good mix of female plants and male plants, flowers, and pollination is going really well. And you'll see all the bees that are flying around. So the other thing I wanted to show you is the root system in there. You can see all the roots. Let's see if I can get my hand in there, growing through here. That's why we really set this up to be a nice fluffy mix with lots of peat moss or cocoa coir, because you need water to be held in there. These plants will fill the soil up, even in these large containers, and they'll just suck the life away of the fertilizer and the water. So these are getting watered every other day in the heat. Alright, so let me show you how I just top dress this real quick with an organic fertilizer at 4 weeks, 5 weeks of growth, and we'll water it in with a fish emulsion. So here are the products that I'm going to be using. Fish emulsion organic fertilizer. Just follow the instructions. That's a 2-gallon container. Each of these containers is going to get about a gallon of water with the fish emulsion in there. You really want to give it a nice feeding. The granular fertilizer, organic, any kind is really fine. They're all basically the same stuff. And I consider this about 2 or 3 tablespoons. And that's what I'm just going to scatter across the top. First thing that we're going to do is remove any leaves that look damaged. They're not okay. So I just cut them off at the stem. I'll show you how to do that. Then the fertilizers are good to go. You let that dry. Hit it with the peppermint oil. That's 1 to 2 teaspoons of peppermint oil in 1 gallon of water with some soap. All these recipes are on my YouTube channel if you want to check them out. Then I'll spray the undersides of the leaves. And then when everything is dried, that's when the powder would go down, and that's spinosad. That's organic. I'll show you how I use that. And that should set these plants up perfectly for the rest of the season, really. I may put in some more fertilizer later. I'll definitely do the spraying. Spraying, FYI, always test spray. You have to spray a couple of leaves, wait 48 hours. But my spraying routine is about every 7 to 14 days, depending on what I'm using, what the problems are on the plants. Water-soluble fertilizer, every 7 to 14 days, depending on the size of the plant. Granular type for top dressings, maybe once a month, twice a month, depending on what's going on. So you can see that it varies. You can't just take away one gardener does it and just apply it to all your plants. You got to learn a little bit, but that's the general kind of parameters. All right, so I would look at these leaves, cucumber wise, they all look pretty good. Where I start seeing dots like this, I might remove them. I'll get in there and just cut off at the stem leaves that look beat up or have those dots, and just open it up a little bit. These plants look pretty good. Sometimes I just let them go. Here's a good example right in there of the squash plant that has a lot of dots, and sometimes that's insects on the underside that are just basically sucking the saps out of the leaves. There's no powdery mildew on here, and I just get in and cut the leaf off just like that. And you want to open up the plant. Let's cut this one. It's green, but you want to open it up so that the sunlight comes in and hits your other plants. This one would have to come out. And I would just go through, cut the leaves just like that. But this plant looks healthy overall. All right, let's do the granular fertilizer. And like I said, it's nothing fancy. You want to stay away maybe an inch from the stems of your plant. But with organic fertilizer, you can't really hurt your plant, but you just want to sprinkle it in. Some of it's getting on the flowers, that's okay. And that's 2 or 3 tablespoons spread out through there. Now, I'll do that for all the containers, but that's basic process. Maybe 2 handfuls for that one. Once the organic granular is down, that's a slow release, and that will feed over the next several weeks. The water soluble is immediately available, and we put that in 1 good gallon. And you can see you put in the granular first, and the water here will wash it away. And I put in about a gallon, half a gallon to a gallon in this smaller container, full gallon in there. And then I would come back, water it in, get off all the organic granular, the solid granules that are on the flowers and stems, wash them into the earth. All right, so let's pretend this is dried and that we did this whole process over here. So organic granular, water soluble, water them in. So we've done that. This plant is dried. We'll come over and we'll get the sprays. Now this is the peppermint oil spray, and it's really to control spider mites and smaller insects, and I use it as a repellent. And you want to just get in and just evenly spray the undersides. Top sides, do this early morning like today. Get in here, get the stems, and the peppermint oil really does a good job of keeping spider mites, soft-bodied insects away from your plants. And I would go through, soak the tops, the bottoms with the peppermint oil, and again, every 7 to 14 days using this. So now that we put the fertilizer down, we watered them in, we sprayed, we let that dry, and let's go over to another plant to pretend we've gone through these stages, and I'll put down the organic powders. So you can see the flowers are in the center. So we're not going to drop dust all around here where the pollinators go. So we'll take some of the spinosad. You can use it in the container for the outer leaves, but I left it over there. And I just want to show you, as you just put it on the outer leaves, away from the pollinators, your cucumber beetles, your problematic insects will come by and walk on that. If you're worried about the pollinators, do this late in the evening, let it go through the night, come out in the morning, wash it off. But any kind of problematic insects will walk through there. Now, we get the vine borer, and what I hope by starting these in waves is sometimes you miss the life cycle of the vine borer. And this is a little more difficult. You want to get in, I'll have to move my hand in a second, and just treat the stem area, just like that. You can also find parts of the stem and just drop it on there again, away from the flowers. Sometimes this helps keep the vine borer from establishing. But also, beetles will walk in right from the earth, from the soil, up the stem and kind of, populate and move around your plant. So that's a great strategy and a great way to use dust. Rather than throwing it everywhere, covering everything, getting the leaves, the flowers, the stems, where the pollinators are going to go, you keep the dust on the outside. And again, you might have to do this every 5 to 7 days, depending on the rain or how you want to use it. If you have an infestation, you don't want to keep this powder on there. You do it at night, remove it in the morning, do it at night, remove it in the morning, and you do that 3 days in a row. That should get the problems under control. Now, so I wanted to cover a couple more pests real quick. You want to look at the undersides of your leaves. I didn't find any in the undersides, but right in here, when finishing off the spraying, those are squash bug eggs. So you want to just take that leaf and remove it. And again, I'm removing leaves for leaves that look beat up or problematic, also to let light in. The other thing you want to be doing is looking on your leaf for little white powdery circles. They're pretty evident. I have plenty of videos on that. I just shot a couple if you want to check out the channel. But that would be powdery mildew. So that's when you would spray your anti-fungal. You can also spray your anti-fungals now. After the peppermint oil dries, you can mix them, it's okay. That would keep powdery mildew from coming. So when you're doing the sprays for the peppermint oil, I'm also not putting it on my tomato plants. I don't want to confuse people. You could use it, but I don't have the need, so I don't put sprays on plants that don't need it. So only my squash, zucchini, and cucumbers got it. I will be doing a third video I decided in this series. Here we go. Let's see what that was. Oh, it just fell off, but I think that was a cucumber beetle. So inspect the plants, you'll find out what the bugs are, you'll know how to treat them. So I will be doing a third video in this series really on trellising and harvesting, because I want to pull those cucumber plants up even though I'm letting some sprawl. It was really hard to get in there and spray. So when you go ahead and, or when you trellis up cucumbers, it's easy to get in and spray. There, right on cue, that just flew off. I don't know if you saw it, but that was a squash bug. Trellising your cucumbers upward allows you to get in. There you go. That is a squash bug right there. And when you spray and you water in and you soak in the soil, the squash bugs will crawl from the bottom and go to the tops of the leaves. So that's one way you can hunt them down and find them. You want to remove that and kill that. So again, trellis the cucumbers upward. It's easier to spray under there and manage for pests and disease. So a third video will come out on trellising and harvesting and whatever else I need to talk about. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com, and I also have a new book coming out called The Modern Homestead Garden, and it'll really teach you all the principles you need to set up your gardens and have a wonderful homestead. Thanks for watching.